Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody. Bill? How are you? Last time you had you had an injury.
Yes.
How are you recuperating?
I'm recuperating. I don't think the discrepancies in my eyes are too noticeable to the online video watching audience. Not 100% there yet, but there's no active pain. Just need to put a lot of gunk on my eye all the time. Hopefully the cornea will heal properly.
Excellent. Well, glad that you're back on the mend.
The important thing, Matt, is that we talked after the debate last week, right?
It's all a blur to me, but okay.
The important thing is that I can still do candlepin bowling, and my game didn't suffer too much. I might have mentioned that last week, but
I mean, I'm usually drunk when we tape the show, so it's hard. It really is a blur, but okay, we talk.
Since we last talked, we've had a vice presidential debate, and now we're looking ahead at the town hall debate this Sunday. I saw you in your Twitter feed saying, Pence did a great job. Most of the commentary was that sort of, Pence smooth as butter, Tim Kaine kind of jumpy and interrupting too much. But I feel like the substance of what Pence said had more negative fallout the day after than any of the specifics that Tim Kaine said.
Well, that may be, but I don't know that the day after matters that much. I mean, I think that, in the moment is what matters more.
I strongly disagree with that.
Oh, really?
Oh, post-debate spin is everything.
Well, but I don't think it's been, look, granted, I don't watch a lot of cable news, but I don't think it's been I knew Jack Kennedy was a good friend of mine kind of moment. I mean, that they've been playing ad nauseum.
No, I don't think there's any breakout moment on either side. I mean, I'm
yeah,
by
so
and large. Go on.
So I guess my point would be, like, if Pence had a great debate, but there was that one moment that had gotten replayed over and over and over again that made him look bad, then I might agree with you. But otherwise, I thought Pence was masterful in his ability to be an apologist for Donald Trump in a way. So he basically, I think what he did was, I think it was a combination of things. One, I think what Pence did was make Trump more acceptable to conservatives. So I feel a little more positive toward Trump today than I did a week ago, based on that. I think, obviously, in some cases, Pence presented Trump's past statements in the best and the most forgiving possible light. Let me explain to you, essentially, what Trump really meant, or what the context of that was. And in some cases, I think that's perfectly fair game. It's kind of the job of a running mate. And basically, Pence smoothed the edges over and made him a kinder, gentler Trump. I would certainly concede that in other examples, I think Pence, parried or downplayed things that Trump actually said and engaged in a bit of gaslighting, as they say.
Well, I mean, that's the stuff that you wonder. I mean, how good a job was it if the fallout is you said things, you denied Trump said things that he clearly said, and you denied things that you said that you clearly said. To what extent does the style of presentation matter if that's what the running commentary is?
Yeah, I sort of buy the notion that, and we're late to the game. We probably shouldn't spend too much time on fisking the Veep debate, because others have done it for a couple days now. But I think I kind of buy the argument that, like, if this is about Pence versus Kaine, then Pence definitely wins. Pence comes across as a nicer guy who really presented a sunny brand of optimistic conservatism. I think Kaine came across as kind of mean, and he interrupted him like 70 times. And by the way, Kaine also engaged in some questionable things, including the notion that his statement that the Iranian nuclear deal stopped the Iranian nuclear program, and there were others. But by and large, I think that Mike Pence comes out of this looking great. I think that this is something a la pundit at Hot Air several people disagreed with me about this, but I think there's a chance that what happens sort of post Trump is that we end up with a hybrid form. We'll never go back to the old days of the Reagan Republican Party, but you could have a hybrid which basically takes the good parts of Trumpism, or at least the popular parts of Trumpism, right? So protectionist trade policies are populist and popular. I think building a wall, not the racist dog whistle stuff, but just building a wall to secure the border is probably popular. And I think things like not fixing Social Security, not doing entitled, like all those things are popular, even if it's a bad policy. But then combining them with more traditional conservatism, at least rhetorically, that Mike Pence offers. So if you buy the argument that the future of the Republican Party, you can never go back to pre-Trump, but you need a kinder, gentler Trump, then I think Mike Pence is sort of, who's better positioned than Mike Pence in the future to be the avatar of this new Republican Party?
So, because there's a lot of talk coming out of the debate that this is really about Pence 2020. Right. He served himself well. He didn't necessarily serve Trump well, and certainly anytime the former VP is in the mix, that person's going to have some inside track on the next nomination. Except unless your name is Quayle, but
who really gets a bum rap. And let me just say, the airing of that Jack Benson moment over and over and
Lloyd
over
Benson.
again every 4 or 8 years is really, it's unfortunate because, talk about a guy. This is one of the problems that conservatives have, I think, is you take these young rising stars who need more time in the incubator, and you thrust them in to the deep end, to mix my metaphors. And I mean, whether it's Quayle or Palin or maybe even Rubio, although he looks like he's going to rebound in a pretty big way in Florida, there is a danger in thrusting these people into the spotlight too soon.
That's true. Although I think Quayle is not as intellectually challenged as some Republicans that have followed him. So in retrospect, he might look pretty good. But I also don't know if he really was ever really a rising star either. I mean, I don't know if you could argue that he is not as much of an idiot as the character is, but I don't think it makes it. He was a.
Well, we don't know. I mean, this is sort of
either.
like a. This is like a revisionist history or alternative history, but I mean, how old was Dan Quayle when he got
early
picked?
40s? I think I'm older than Quayle was when he was named vice president.
So what if Dan? And at that point he's a senator from Indiana. So what if he's instead of being selected as Bush's running mate, what if he becomes like a 3-term senater from Indiana?
I think he would have been a 3-term
and
senator
now
that played a lot of golf and didn't get a lot of legislation passed. That's my guess.
Maybe. It's hard. It's impossible to tell. It's impossible to predict. But
we digress.
He also might have.
I want to ask you something else though. So
right.
I think you're with me that Trump's probably going to lose. The polls are definitely trending in that direction, and unless you think that he's going to do such a fantastic job in these last debates that things are going to turn around. But I think most people are assuming, most statistical models assume it'll be Clinton. So we're looking at the big moment of reckoning for the Republican Party. Where do we go from here? There's got to be a faction of Republicans that are going to say, we need to get as far away from Trump as possible, and going with his VP choice as the titular leader of the party is the wrong way to go there. And the other argument was what you laid out is that, let's not go 180 degrees away from Trump. We can go kinder, gentler Trump, and then maybe that will work for us. So Pence clearly established himself as kinder, gentler Trump by going through this process. But what do you think the odds are that that's not going to be good enough for the Republican Party at large? That what's the chances that anyone associated with Trump becomes toxic and is persona non grata in the future Republican Party?
Well, I mean, there's a theory that if you lose, you become a loser, and everybody turns on you, and anybody who was associated with that is tarred with that. I don't think that's the way it plays out. I mean, I think there's a real danger that Donald Trump could lose narrowly and just sort of either run again or threaten to run again and hang around. I think that's like the worst case scenario, is that he doesn't go away, that he just sort of lingers around and prevents the party from healing. I think the problem is that even though you've got all of these really exciting, young, optimistic conservatives, Paul Ryan, Nikki Haley, Rubio, Ben Sass, Susana Martinez, you've got all these options. The base isn't with them. I mean, you've got at least 40% of the Republican base that loves Trump and Trumpism. So that's why I think that the only way you really delegitimize and essentially extirpate the Trumpism is for a landslide loss, because you're not just battling against Trump. You're also battling against Ted Cruz, who will try to sort of tap into the populist zeitgeist, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, should he stick around at Fox. So there's, all the problems that existed before Donald Trump exploited them. He didn't invent them. He exploited them. All of those problems are still going to be there. So I think that the most realistic hope we may have is for a hybrid approach, where you have somebody, whether it's Pence or Tom Cotton, somebody who basically co-opts the popular and less unseemly, the popular and palatable, is the way I would put it, the most popular and palatable forms of Trumpism, and then combines that with traditional conservatism. And, if you saw Mike Pence talking about defending the right to life, and anti-Putin, all of that stuff, he may be the best positioned guy. And I don't think, look, the really impressive thing about Pence is anybody else. I mean, if you had anybody else, I think that be Trump corrupts, and almost anybody who comes into Trump's orbit ends up being destroyed by him, ends up looking less credible, less serious, losing their reputation, their legacy. Somehow that hasn't happened with Mike Pence. It's amazing, actually, almost miraculous. And maybe it'll change, but as of now, I feel like Mike Pence emerges unscathed from this whole thing. So, I don't want to get too crazy with my Mike Pence 2020 speculation, but I don't think it's absurd to think that he has actually comported himself quite well, in the last several months.
So we are a few days away from the second presidential debate, the town hall debate, be moderated by Anderson Cooper and Martha Raddatz, if I remember correctly. Anderson Cooper is probably primed to, I think, attract some conservative ire, depending on how he comports himself and what questions are chosen. It was the town hall debate, of course, where another CNNer, Candy Crowley, had her famous moment that you and I have talked about endlessly. This is Trump's first, I think his only time. I don't recall him really doing town halls in the primary process. Even if he did, they're probably pretty self-selecting audiences. He's done these Hannity town halls, which are obviously self-selecting audiences. He's going to have to be faced with people who are not white, who are not conservative, and CNN has been doing lots of town halls. They've done Obama town halls, they did Gary Johnson town halls, they've done Jill Stein town halls. They did primary town halls. I think they've gotten very adept at making town halls good TV and finding the right kind of people to ask the right kind of pointed question. You might think it's not fair all the time, but as far as like causing friction and fireworks, I think they do a good job with that.
It's like reality TV.
Yeah.
It's supposedly a reality, but it's scripted.
Right. So I gotta think Trump's not going to get. I mean, neither one of them are going to get softballs, but I think Hillary is far more accustomed to dealing with, the nasty slider on live TV, and how do you talk to a person that's not with you in a way. I mean, not to say that she is as good as Bill Clinton, I feel your pain, but it's just not a new experience for her. Whereas I don't know if Trump really has it in him to deal with a tough question from an unfriendly questioner with any remote sense of aplomb. Maybe I'm just setting a low bar for him to clear, but I could certainly see at the end of this at this event, that the bottom really could fall out here. I mean, already we're seeing lots of polls with Clinton up by around 6. All the swing state polls since the debate have been tilting her way. So the Electoral College looks very strong for her. There's a New York Times article today where they quote Republican operatives saying the private polling shows a massive exodus away from Trump by independents and Republican moderates. So it seems like this is getting away from him, which could also, not to make it all about Pence, but also could drag Pence down for the future.
Yeah, again, who knows? We've been surprised so much this year, but from my standpoint, if you couldn't invent a worse format for Donald Trump. I mean, first of all, I think they're going to set him up with questions like, "Hi, my name is, Susie Martinez, and, my family struggles to pay taxes. Yet, according to the New York Times, you don't pay taxes. Why should we vote? Why should we vote for someone for president?" And then you've got the problem where Trump. It seems to me that every medium has their a natural skew, and there's a certain talent that every medium lends itself to, and the ability to emote and to show empathy and to feel your pain is what really works in a town hall format. And Trump doesn't have any ability that I've ever seen to do that, to demonstrate that, to identify with regular people. And Hillary's not great either, but at least she's going to try. I mean, she cares enough to fake it. Trump, that's sort of outside, I think, the scope of his abilities.
His basic approach to an unfriendly question is to browbeat the questioner, not to find a point of common ground where they could express solidarity with each other.
Right, and browbeating the questioner could work if you're up against the big bad media. But what if it's, Joe Sixpack asking you that question? So, look, again, we've been wrong a lot. It's who knows how this will shake out. But, this could be that. I mean, there's a chance for a devastatingly bad. I mean, some people have already called the first debate the worst debate performance of any presidential candidate. This one has the potential to top that.
And I think I mentioned this before. The third debate moderator is Chris Wallace, and Chris Wallace is no softy questioner either. So I don't see any of this really.
And he may have something to prove. I mean, there could be that thing where I want to prove to everybody that I'm not biased toward the Republican. So I'm going to ask him really hard questions.
Right. So with that in mind. What is the level of panic in Republican circles from where you sit? There's this New York Times piece where, because in a lot of the polling we haven't seen Trump dragging down the Senate candidates, across the board. Rubio, Ayotte, to a lesser extent Toomey, although he had one good poll the other day. They seem to be, those are still races. They have a shot at taking those things. Democrats probably have Wisconsin and Illinois in the bag. They have opened up races that people didn't expect in North Carolina and Indiana. And Missouri apparently, in that the New York Times piece said that private polling shows that Cantor is ahead of Blunt, although there's been no public polling that has said that yet. Other races that didn't pan out the way they wanted to. I mean, Arizona doesn't look close yet. Georgia doesn't look close. But in Ohio, it looks like Portman's pulling away from Strickland there. But you still have enough races on the map where you can see pretty easily Democrats getting at least 4. But if there is a deeper cratering, do you hear Republicans, you're in the Daily Caller offices, do people start saying, well, I really think this is going to be a bloodbath here, that we thought maybe Trump could keep this close and not have this be a total disaster, but it doesn't feel that way right now?
No, look, I think people have resigned themselves so much to this. This is beyond our control. Donald Trump, it's just so crazy. And then the other thing too, I mean, maybe if I was hanging out at the NRSC, there may be hand wringing, but let me just be honest with you. People may not believe this, but the Daily Caller is much more about journalism than about rooting for a team. And so there's nobody here worried that Kelly Ayotte's not going to win in New Hampshire. You know what I mean?
There's no person in the office that that's our Trump guy. That guy is all Trump all the time. Man, that guy can't shut up.
No, we got a couple Trump people, but we don't have any Ayotte people or Toomey people. You know what I'm saying?
So
yeah, no, it's so there. I think basically it's people. I just think people have resigned themselves to. It's in God's hands now. What happens?
Now,
we can't really worry too much.
Now, we're taping on Thursday. Friday is the 20th anniversary of the launch of Fox News. I have a piece about it in the queue at Politico. I'm not sure if it's going to run in time for Friday or not, but we'll see. So I don't want to say too much, in case it's going to come out soon. But you go look at 15-year anniversary Fox pieces. They're all like, Fox is on top of the world. Fox has changed the landscape of cable news. Roger Ailes is king of media. Poor Fox critics have to cry in their beer that Fox News sets the tone for all of our conversation. And now Fox is in total disarray. They've already had a significant exodus of staff and some hosts. There's some talk of a bigger house cleaning after Election Day. You have Sean Hannity and Megyn Kelly yesterday in open warfare. There actually was a Samantha Bee piece after the first debate where they pick up Megyn Kelly looking at Hannity talking to Trump, and then Kelly saying, maybe Trump's not going to talk to some journalists, with the implication that Sean Hannity's not a journalist. Yesterday, she knocks Trump for only talking to Hannity and not getting out of the bubble, making Hannity tweet out that Megyn supports Hillary, and this is a part of Hannity's long-standing crusade against anyone in Republican circles that is not 100% loyal to Trump, and if Trump loses, it's all their fault. And now you have this Jesse Waters blatantly racist segment in Chinatown that's putting the O'Reilly show in hot water. So there's all sorts of problems besetting Fox, even though the ratings are still good and the profitability is still good. But what I suggest in my piece is that Fox, at minimum, has proven to be unhelpful at advancing the conservative cause and the Republican Party, that they've created this bubble that where at one point liberals thought Fox had created a megaphone that could alter the political conversation in an unfavorable way to the left. I think now you see that they've created a bubble where things don't get out of it. They didn't sink Obama on Fast and Furious and Solyndra and the IRS. They've created this delusion that Trump actually could win when all evidence points to that he has a hard ceiling. and now they're turning their guns against each other in response. So I think there's a moment for Fox and other conservative media to say, what do we do differently here so we have a conservative media that actually helps conservatism and it doesn't trap conservatism?
Yeah, as you know, a whole chapter in Too Dumb to Fail devoted to this,
that is true.
this problem, the conservative echo chamber. I do think Trump has the chance to win. I bet against him. I'd bet on Hillary, of course, but I don't think it's absurd or wishful thinking. I mean, I think that clearly what Dick Morris did, going on, O'Reilly, and in the face of all sorts of polls predicting that Romney would win by a landslide, was much more egregious than anything that's happened now with people saying that Trump has a chance to win. Now, we'll see if it gets to be a week out and all the trends and all the polls show that not happening. But
well, I mean, obviously, you're always on safe ground saying so-and-so has a chance. There's a statistical probability, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know if I've seen a commentator say this publicly. I don't watch enough Fox News to know. But I certainly hear anecdotally from Trump supporters online and friends of friends, there's this sense in Trump world that Trump doesn't need a ground game. Trump has the people on his side. Trump has the silent majority. The people are going to rise up and prove all these polls wrong. And I mean, that is just straight up delusion that he can win without doing the things that winning campaigns have to do.
Well, without we've been over this, but Hillary could win California by 10 million votes and lose Iowa and Ohio by 100 votes, and Trump could win the Electoral College. There's like 24 million. I think I read 24 million white men without college degrees who were eligible to vote but did not vote in 2012. Now, again, Trump hasn't shown me any signs that he has the logistical ability to register, to make sure that they're all still, viable and that they actually show up on election day or whatever. But, polls are wrong sometimes. The Brexit vote, was unexpected. So I just, I give Hillary, I mean, and plus, as recently as like 10 days ago, I think Nate Silver was giving Trump like a 47% chance of winning.
I think those numbers have already fallen off considerably after the last week of polls.
Yeah, but what's to say that 2 weeks from now won't look like 2 weeks ago?
Yes, there's always a chance. But look, even Brexit, the Brexit polls weren't wildly off. They were close. They might have been slightly off because polling is no poll ever says this is exactly true. There's always margin of error. I don't think the Brexit vote was outside margin of error. And so, but I think people are glomming onto little scraps of hope based on these like very unusual examples to say Trump doesn't need to do basic campaign 101 because this happened or that happened. I mean, Harry Truman upset the polls in 1948, one, because polling was pretty shoddy back then, but he busted his ass. I mean, he didn't lollygag his way to that upset.
You lollygag the ball to first. I love the lollygag thing. Let me just say this. I just wanted to make a note that I think Trump still has a chance. But the larger point, I think, is about Fox News.
Yeah.
And others, John Ziegler, other people, I think, have made this point, but I think it's worth repeating. Republicans have done, at the presidential level, since in the last 20 years, Republicans have not done well. And you don't want to confuse causation with correlation, but I think you could make a reasonable argument that that Fox has been a net negative, and also you've got other things like the blogosphere emerging and other things that supposedly we're going to level the playing field and push back against liberal media bias. But if you just look at the results, are we better? Are you better off today than you were 20 years ago?
Well, I talked to Ziegler for my piece. He said to me, the record of Republicans in presidential elections before So I mean, you're saying there's all these things that could happen, and there's uncertainty and so forth. I think the preponderance of evidence here is that there is a bubble that's been created that tell conservatives things that things that are factually untrue, things about policy that are not correct. Immigrants taking your jobs, that sort of thing. It's not what's happening right now. They're political strategy things that they're told that are not correct. There's a guy named Matthew Sheffield that had a piece in the National Review last 2 months ago, where he's saying the conservative media doesn't provide positive feedback loops for people to hear that, hey, shutting down the government didn't work, that didn't help you, that wasn't a good idea, and to go to disavow that kind of strategies in the future. That stuff doesn't happen.
I disavow.
I think that's how you get a nominee like Trump, where you tell yourself this is possible. This is what America is really like. And you can say, sure, let's say the nation's people of color don't show up and all the white working class do show up. Maybe it could technically happen. But most likely, the country is diverse enough that is not what's going to happen, not by a long shot. And you don't get that picture of America from Fox News. Fox News gives you this sort of Truman Show. Don't go outside. It's scary out there. Stay in here where it's safe.
And there's so many factors, but the rise of Fox, the rise of conservative talk radio coincide with the collapse of local newspapers and local reporting. And so think of the incentives. If you're a local congressman in the Midwest, it used to be that if you had a negative story on the front page of the paper, that was very damaging to you politically. Now, the paper doesn't exist, or nobody reads it, doesn't care as much as they used to. But if Fox News has you on, you're gold, at least you think you are in your community. So the incentives have all changed. There's so many variables here. But I do think it's very clear that the conservative entertainment complex is a fundamental problem facing conservatism. It has dumbed it down. And there are these perverse incentives where people like, Ann Coulter and Sean Hannity, their business model says to do A, but that's not necessarily what's best if you care about winning elections.
I mean, to get you see that Jesse Waters piece, that Chinatown piece?
I've seen all the uproar over it, but I haven't watched it. Now, people, having not seen it, I haven't been able to determine whether or not this is you and your leftist friends, Bill, and political correctness run amok, or if this is legitimately offensive and racist. I've not been able to discern that.
I think you and I have go back a long way. I think you often trust my judgment on things. I think so.
We go all the way back to the academy, the pundit academy together.
That's right.
We have risen through the ranks together.
Just take my word on this, Matt, that this is not a close call situation. I don't think I've ever seen something as overtly racist on national TV in my entire life.
So, okay, I want you to tell me what it is, and I hope you will do impersonations of Asians, just so I fully get it. But not because I want to have you on camera doing that, because I would never use that against you. But it is weird, isn't it, that this is a guy, I don't really know him, but this is a guy who lives in New York City and is a part, isn't that interesting that these, I guess Archie Bunker lived in Queens or something, right? I mean, it's funny that Donald Trump, and that's part of this whole story is interestingly, so many of, we talk about the split amongst conservatives between who's never Trump and who's pro-Trump, and you could say well, sort of the columnists and the writers tend to be anti-Trump, and the talk radio hosts tend to be pro-Trump. Of course, there are exceptions like Charlie Sykes, but I think one of the big undertold stories is the New York thing. the people who are in New York, I think, have a propensity to like Trump. And it is weird, right, that like New York is considered this hub of cosmopolitanism, and we mock like Alabama and Mississippi and West Virginia, where I went to college, and we assume that New York is this, cosmopolitan city, but like Trump's from like, isn't it weird that this guy who's like I guess you'd call him a journalist in New York would be doing something like this in 2016?
Well, that's what I mean. To have not just that he would do it, but that nobody on the show's staff, nobody raised a red flag and say, "Whoa, this is not." We're not in the 1920s here. This is the 21st century, and we don't make fun of Chinese people because they don't speak in American accents. We don't intersperse our interviews with Chinese Americans with clips of the Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi, who's not even Chinese.
Well, and in the movie, he was from Okinawa, Japan.
Right, exactly. So
I haven't seen it, but you're saying that this interview engaged in stereotyping and mimicking the way that Asians speak English.
I mean, or that they don't speak English well. And I mean, there's one clip where he's speaking to a very old Chinese woman, asks her a question, and she doesn't answer. She stares blankly at the camera, and that's supposed to be funny that she doesn't understand an English question very well. I mean, the whole premise of it. Let's see how little people in Chinatown know about American politics. Mixed.
I'm just impressed that there are Chinese in Chinatown. Yeah. I feel like if you went to Washington, D.C.'s Chinatown, you'd have a hard time finding.
Well, yeah, I mean, New York's Chinatown.
That's where like the Verizon Center.
San Francisco's Chinatown. These are real Chinatowns. These are real, self-staying communities of many people who don't really speak English. I mean, obviously, there are lots of folks in China who are bilingual, but there are some who really aren't. That's been that way for decades. It's not just like.
I think if you went to our Chinatown, you would only find people rocking the red, like wearing Washington Capitals jerseys and eating at like Clyde's. I think Jesse might have had a harder time doing that show here, but
right.
It is interesting. I obviously need to go watch this clip.
Right, but I think just a question of like feedback loops. I mean, there's such an obsession with political incorrectness that all the incentive within Fox World is this is fun and politically incorrect. This is going to really tickle the funny bones of our old white viewership, and that is just really removed from modern America in a way that not only is bad for the individuals involved, but I would say bad for conservatism in general. There should be an effort to connect conservatism with modern America, not try to separate from it.
Yeah.
And that's not what Fox does.
I'm also like, I'm sure you've seen the Amy Schumer skit about her like racist grandmother. But like Jesse Waters is probably 40 years old and he lives in New York City. Like, I don't understand how you become that out of touch with, never mind like what should be decent or moral to you personally, but like just out of touch with like what is within the bounds of acceptable, behavior. Seems weird.
As someone born in New York City, raised in the suburbs, I am not surprised. there are plenty of racist jerks that grew up in New York City, you live in the world you create in your mind, and you pick up little things and you extrapolate racist stereotypes because you had some mild interaction with somebody, and it doesn't.
And maybe familiarity breeds contempt. Having exposure to.
I think there has been some research about that there are people who are in close quarters with folks have more race attitudes than folks who are totally isolated sometimes. So I'm not surprised by the individuals being like that, but in a large operation, you need editors that raise red flags, which Fox News clearly doesn't have right now, or if ever.
And then, obviously Sean Hannity had that tweet, and Megyn Kelly. That's putting the substance aside. I feel like companies should have a policy that says don't publicly attack people who work there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I don't want censorship or anything like that, but I feel that as a rule, you shouldn't publicly attack people who work at the place you work. I've probably broken it, but I mean, there's a difference between disagreeing with them and having like a debate and
I mean, I might have thought, like, when I thought stuff was going on with Trump and Megyn Kelly, part of me was like, I'm sure between Trump and Kelly and Roger Ailes, everyone's like, this is all good for ratings. We're all having conflict, and there's a soap opera, there's drama here. It's a win-win for all involved. Right now, with Fox News being kind of, rudderless, and Sean Hannity going on an extended bender on Twitter against anyone who is not professing full loyalty to Trump, I sense it's probably not a coordinated ratings drama. This is Hannity on his own, who just seems unmoored, or is deliberately doing this because he wants to stay in Trump's good graces and and be the star anchor of Trump TV in a few months. But
we may all be at Trump TV in a few months, Bill.
Well, I probably need to jump, so we can leave it on that note if you like.
All right. I'm a little surly again this week. I'm tired. I've been all over. I got one thing to plug.
Yeah.
I did. My friend and colleague Jamie Weinstein has a great new podcast. He's had, I think Alan Dershowitz was his first guest, Karl Rove was his second, Michael Oren was his third, and I was his fourth. And this is the most sort of, personal I've ever gotten in an interview. Nothing scandalous, but just like talking about where I come from, my story. And I think especially for anybody who's aspiring to be a commentator or a journalist, you should check it out. Jamie Weinstein Show. You can find it on iTunes or wherever podcasts are consumed.
Excellent. And assuming this gets posted on Thursday the 6th, today is the last day to buy tickets for the World Affairs Council of Western Massachusetts 90th anniversary dinner, where I will be keynote speaking, delivering an address on how 2016 has made Democrats the national security party. So if you want to go to that, go to worldaffairscouncil.com today, Thursday the 6th. Get your tickets, and hopefully I'll see you there.
Or even if you're just a heckler and you want to shout Baba Booey or La Cheeserie, you go. All right.
As long as you buy a ticket.
Another award-winning episode. And Bill, always a pleasure, my friend.
Same here. Talk to you next week.
You got it. Bye.